We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Monday night edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. You know, we did the full bracket breakdown on Sunday night, but there is so much going on with this NCAA tournament and in the world of college basketball that it felt like we had to come back and get live again here on a Monday night because we got ourselves a lot of news throughout the day on Monday. So we're going to start. We talked bracket last night. We are going to start with this UNC story is not going away. Bubba Cunningham, the UNCAD chair of the selection committee, that guy is under fire right now. West Virginia's governor is suing. So this is a crazy story that I don't think is going away. And I think it speaks to the broader nature of, like, we got to figure out a better way to choose 68 teams. So we'll discuss that. From there, we will actually talk a little bit of bracket. Again, my official bracket picks will probably do Tuesday night. And so I only bring it up to very simply say that today I want to give you 5 teams seeded 6 or below that I believe can make a run in the NCAA tournament. And then finally, we'll wrap. You know, transfer portal isn't officially open yet, but guys are entering and good players are entering, and we are going to break down some of the big names that have entered and where they could end up. Do a lot of portal. It's going to be a lot of portal talk here the next probably 2 months or so here on the Aaron Torres Pod. But with that said, before we get started, a couple quick reminders. Make sure you're subscribed. Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. YouTube channel's blowing up, 51,500 subscribers. Can we get to 60,000 before the end of the NCAA tournament? I think we can. Cannot do it, though, without your support. Make sure you're subscribed on Apple, Spotify as well. You want to do your boy Torres a solid, leave a 5-star rating and review. That really does help. Also, before we get started, should mention NCAA tournament starts in full on Thursday. You know, we got the playing games, whatever. They don't want to call us. They don't want us to call them the playing games. I don't care. It's a freaking playing game. Okay, they call it the first 4. Well, I only bring it up because guess what? This year we are running a very special offer, very special deal. We're running an Aaron Torres Pod Survivor Pool. Okay, so in the past, we have done NCAA tournament brackets, Survivor Pool. It's the new age thing. It's what all the cool kids are doing. And it's actually very simple to play, but very fun and nuanced as well. So you're not picking a bracket. What you're doing instead, we've all played Survivor Pools, NCAA, college football, NFL, whatever. You pick one team to win every single day. Seems simple. Here is the issue. You cannot pick the same team twice, okay? So let's say you pick Duke on the first day of the tournament or the first Friday. You can't pick them the rest of the tournament. And so I just bring it up to very simply say this is fun. This is awesome. $20 to enter, minimum $500 grand prize. But here's the deal. More people that enter, guess what? The more money that you can make. So enter yourself. Tell some friends. We're going to get this thing rocking and rolling. I am so fired up. Again, minimum $500 right out of Torres' pocket. That's all you got to do. Click the link tagged in the show description, as well as the link atop the chat in YouTube. 20 to enter. You compete against Torres. Share with some friends. You compete against them as well. That is the Aaron Torres Pod Survivor Pool. Cannot wait to compete against all of you. And yes, you can make fun of me when my first pick on Thursday loses. Should mention, by the way, you can enter more than once. So let's say you want to put down $20, but you kind of like this team, but you feel good about another team as well. You can enter more than once as well. Also, before we get started, let me tell you this. We have a very special deal, a very awesome deal, because over the next couple weeks, we are working with SeatGeek for all of March Madness. Okay, so SeatGeek, here's what you need to know. You know all about SeatGeek, but listen, it's March. You're going to be going to games. Maybe on a Tuesday or Wednesday, you might hit a concert, a show, or whatever. Well, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app on the internet with over 28 million downloads and over 70,000 events already on the app, including concerts, festivals, NES sporting events, March Madness is here. You guys are going to games. I already know some BYU fans are planning to go to Denver. Some Kentucky fans planning to go to Milwaukee. Louisville fans are going to be driving right up to Lexington to boo the Auburn Tigers. So what you need to do is download this. Let me even say this. You're going to the games, and this is the best thing. First of all, SeatGeek is super cool for this reason. One, each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10. So basically, you know if you're getting a good deal. If you see green dots, that means that is a darn good deal. If you see red dots, it means bad. So look out for green dots. Green means good. But the best part, this is the part that you got to pay attention to, okay? Listeners of the Aaron Torres pod have a very special offer just for listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. If you're going to any of these games, any concert over the month of March into April, all you got to do is use promo code Torres on your first purchase. And guess what? You get $20 off that first purchase. So you're spending $20, you get them for free. You're spending $50, you get them for $30. Promo code Torres. By the way, I already had a few of you reach out. The promo code is working. People are already using it. Again, for more information, download the SeatGeek app. You're going to games. Promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. That runs through the end of the NCAA tournament. Let's keep it rocking. Let's keep it rolling. We appreciate SeatGeek support. With that said, it's a busy Monday. Bracket is out. There is no more time to waste. So let's get to the topic of the day. And boy, oh boy. Yeah, people, this is a topic that's not going away. Okay, so topic of the day. Listen, you don't need me to tell you. Bracket came out Sunday. We spent like 2 hours on the live stream breaking down the bracket, every single game, every single region. As I said, Tuesday night, I will make my official picks. But at the same time, here is what you need to know. Every single year, there is some kind of controversy with the NCAA tournament. Some year it's the 1 seed. Some year it's the bubble. Some years it's this. Some years it's that. Well, I bring it up because we have a controversy for the ages on our hands, and it involves the North Carolina Tar Heels, number 68 in the NCAA tournament. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this on Sunday night's show, but it's Monday. This story is only picking up steam, and why this is so interesting, why it is so fascinating is pretty straightforward. You guys and girls know the deal. You know why this is a huge story with a lot of tentacles. It's very simple. One, North Carolina's in the tournament. Why it is kind of crazy is because, I don't want to say literally, but basically literally, there were essentially 0 bracketologists that had North Carolina in the field. Okay, listen, we've gone through their resume, 1 quad 1 win, 1-12 in quad 1 overall. They have a quad 3 loss to Stanford. We don't need to get into all that. But what I will tell you, and we said this on Sunday night's show, is that the bracketology community, okay, like those guys, I think sometimes in sports, there can be groupthink in terms of, thought process, right? So like I used the example on Sunday, but Shedeur Sanders, does everyone really believe he's not a first-round pick, or did one person hear it and it kind of became a thing of telephone? Well, I bring it up because bracketology is not like that at all, okay? Bracketology, all of these guys and girls are competing. They get ranked on some website. What is it? Bracket Matrix, I think is what it is. And so everybody's trying to prove that they're the best at this thing. Everyone's trying to prove that they're the best version of Joe Lunardi, and they're the next Joe Lunardi, and ESPN or Fox or CBS should hire them, okay? And so these guys are ranked, and really the margins are so thin that basically, it doesn't behoove you to just follow everybody else's lead. So when virtually every single bracketologist did not have North Carolina in the field, that's not groupthink. That's not coincidence. It was at best a weird decision by the selection committee, okay? But here's where it gets a little bit more complicated, and this is where we need to talk about it. It is the fact that, of course, the chairman of the NCAA tournament committee was, of course, UNC athletic director Bubba Cunningham. Okay. And so this became a story overnight. It picked up steam into the morning, but there are a lot of frustrations from a lot of fan bases that were left out, specifically West Virginia, specifically Indiana. We're going to get to the West Virginia governor here in a minute, but I just bring it up because there is so much controversy around what is going on. And as people dig deeper into this, it looks sketchy, okay? Listen, I know that these guys are supposed to recuse themselves from the room when the bracket is, when their team is talked about in the bracket, But at the same time, there's a couple variables here. One, somebody online found a copy of Bubba Cunningham's contract where apparently he is paid $104,000 every single time North Carolina makes the NCAA tournament. By the way, sweet gig if you can get it. 6 figures for North Carolina to make the tournament. By the way, North Carolina should make the tournament every year. So you just get a $100,000 bonus every March. Must be nice. Torres doesn't know much about it. Sorry, producer Matt. That bonus ain't coming for you either. But the bottom line is $100,000, and everyone's like, Team 69 got a little bit weird. But you know what else was weird as well? As I was watching this, and as I think a lot of other people were watching it, I want to give credit to my radio partner, Dan Beyer. Okay, so on Sunday, I was on the Fox Sports Radio National Selection Show, 600 station nationwide, all over the country, whatever. And we're reacting in real time to the bracket. So first of all, it was kind of crazy because, first of all, I saw North Carolina on the screen before he did. He said, Ole Miss is the 6th seed in this region. And, he's looking down to make sure to have his notes ready. And I said, oh, my goodness, look who they could potentially play. And, of course, it was North Carolina versus their now opponent, San Diego State. But where I want to give Dan Beyer credit was after the bracket came out. We were on air until 8 p.m. Eastern time, which obviously was the totality of the bracket show. And on the bracket show, it wasn't just Bubba Cunningham, the chairman of the NCAA tournament committee, that was interviewed by CBS. Remember, CBS always brings in the chairman of the NCAA tournament selection committee to kind of explain this team was left in, this team was left out, this team was brought in, why was this, why was that, blah, 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 blah. And right away you see, the co-chair is also on TV with him. And Dan Beyer right away said, listen, man, I've been doing this a long time. Me and Beyer have done the NCAA tournament selection show for 6 straight years. The first year we were scheduled to do it was March of 2020. So there was no bracket to reveal. But every selection Sunday from 2020 on, I have been on air with Dan Beyer. And so I only bring it up because he goes, dude, I've been doing this forever. I have never, ever seen the selection committee chair have to bring on a second person to speak with him and on behalf of him. And the logic obviously being, of course, that if he really has recused himself, then he can't really talk about Carolina. He can't really explain, in theory, why Carolina was either left in or left out. So the second guy on the committee had to come in and actually speak. What I did not realize, though, in real time, credit to Dan for figuring it out, was that CBS actually announced the day before, I think it was Friday or Saturday, that the co-chair would be joining Bubba Cunningham for all of the TV interviews. It has certainly led to a lot of speculation. It has certainly led to a lot of interesting conversation. And I'll tell you what, the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, Matt Norlander, Gary Parrish. Gary Parrish has been on this show many years ago, but they talked about this on their show, thought this was very interesting, talking about the fact that you have the co-chair joining Bubba Cunningham. Here is what those two guys had to say.
How surprised were you when North Carolina was announced as an 11 seed set to play San Diego State in the first 4?
I actually wasn't surprised North Carolina was in the bracket. And you want to know why? This was my own surmising. I obviously did not have a hint of the bracket beforehand. But every year, and I don't even know if this was the case, by the way, but when we were building out to do the interviews.
I think you're about to say the exact same thing I noticed as well. But go ahead.
So, the plan becomes, the plan had been to be clear, this is not like, at 4:47, the plan changed. It was, I want to say yesterday, hey, we're going to do Bubba Cunningham and Keith Gill. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then I was like, wait a second. If Bubba Cunningham, this has never happened before, where, on CBS Sports HQ, where I did the interview, on CBS Sports Network, where you and the crew do the interviews there, it's always just the chair. And I thought, are they preparing in the event that Carolina gets in that, I can't ask the chair because he's not in the room when Carolina gets in. So in all honesty, Parrish, I thought there was a real possibility that Carolina was going to get in because they.
So CBS Sports, they picked up the same thing that we did live on Fox Sports Radio. The co-chair was in. I think they said the name was Keith Grant. Maybe if I missed it, I apologize, whatever. But they picked up on it right away. And listen, let me say this, is that I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy. But what I did say, you know what this actually reminds me of? Another thing that I happened to be on air for, Fox Sports Radio. I was on air when the Luka Doncic trade happened, okay? And what I keep saying about the Luka trade, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not saying that something fishy happened. But if you want to put the puzzle pieces together and make the argument that something is sketchy, yeah, you can absolutely do it about Luka, and you can absolutely do it about the North Carolina situation. I'm not saying anything did happen, but I certainly think you can put the puzzle pieces together and ask some tough questions, okay? First of all, but before we even dive into it, let me say this. None of us know. None of us probably ever will know. But what I would also say is I'll defend Carolina for half a second. If they scheduled the co-chair with Bubba Cunningham, before the selection show, there is like a pseudo explanation for that. The explanation is, of course, just that, North Carolina is going to be the biggest story one way or the other. North Carolina is either going to be the biggest story because they got left out and we need to talk about it, or they're going to be a huge story because they got in and no one can explain it, so we need to talk about it. So you understand why the committee chair would then, in theory, the committee co-chair would then, in theory, be on set with Bubba Cunningham to basically explain, like, yeah, no matter what happens, he, in theory, can't explain it because he, in theory, has to recuse himself. So I understand, in theory, why they would schedule this guy ahead of time. But again, like I said, I just think the whole thing, what do they say? It reeks to the high heavens, okay? First off, the crazy part was, listen, first of all, you can't tell me that even if Bubba Cunningham recuses himself, that there is no moment in time that North Carolina is spoken about when he's in the room. At some point, you have to finalize a bracket, and he is going to, in theory, be in the room no matter what, okay? So that's one. Two, what I will also say is when they went to the committee co-chair, he didn't really have a real explanation as to why they actually put Carolina in. You know what his explanation was? We talked about it on Sunday's show. His explanation was, well, they were actually team 69, and if UAB had won, they would have gotten the last spot. It's like, yeah, that's how it always works. If you have a team that's only going to get in if they win their conference tournament, then yes, they will knock out an at-large, and if they lose, then the last at-large gets in. But what was never answered was, what was on North Carolina's resume that was that much better than Indiana? What was on their resume that was that much better than West Virginia? Because there is no explanation. The explanation was, well, they were team 69 and then UAB lost, so they became team 68. Yeah, that's how math works, okay? You don't need to be a bracketologist to figure it out. So the explanation stinks. We know Cunningham was in there. Listen, I've heard other people say this, and I think it's totally fair, is like, even if guys recuse themselves, these people spend time together. And I don't know. It feels weird to me. You can't tell me that they're not having meals together, that they're not having this together, that they're not having that together. And all of those other people on the committee having to look that guy in the eye over a course of 4 or 5 days, I do think it has to play some sort of role, okay? Beyond that, let me also say this. Beyond that, let me also explain this. I do think it is time to shake up this selection process. Okay, first of all, I've been on this for years. First of all, let me even backtrack. I said this, I was doing a radio hit earlier in the day on Monday. I think we have to stop playing conference championship games on Sunday because, one, they serve no purpose. Michigan's got no benefit by winning the Big Ten. Florida was already seemingly locked in as a number 1 seed before they won the SEC tournament. So there's no gain to it. And two, I really do think we have to give the committee, give them 12 hours. Finish the games at 1, 2 a.m. Eastern on Saturday, and then release the bracket on Sunday at 6 p.m. Give them 12 hours. Give us 12 hours in the media to react and overreact and overthink about it. But give them 12 hours to just look at this bracket and say, does this actually make sense? Is this justifiable? I'll give you an example that I used on Sunday. I think there is zero explanation for Louisville being an 8 seed in the same region as the number 1 overall seed Auburn, where they are going to have to play in Lexington. Auburn just got screwed by being the number 1 overall seed. And I think you have to give the committee time to look at the bracket and say, this doesn't make sense. Let's think about this. Let's take a deep breath and let's figure out another way to make this work, because the bracket kind of sucked this year, to be perfectly honest. I also just think, like, I don't know if we have to completely eliminate, the athletic directors, but at the same time, like we have to do something, right? Because one, listen, no matter who you have on a committee, there's always going to be some sort of bias, but there is obviously bias and there is financial incentive, quite literally, for these guys to help each other out, or for these guys to push for their own schools, for their own conferences, whatever. So there's the literal incentive of money for these guys and girls on this committee. And then two, here's the other thing. And this is what I always go back to. How much basketball are these people actually watching? Bubba Cunningham is the athletic director at North Carolina, okay? He runs a department that has, 30 athletic sports, 25 athletic sports. He just hired a football coach. He had to help Bill Belichick put together a staff, NIL plans, this, that, the other thing. He's helping Hubert Davis hire a GM over the last couple weeks. You think this dude has time to watch Boise State, Colorado State in the Mountain West on a Thursday night? Of course not. He's watching his team. He's paying. He doesn't have time, and nobody on that committee has time. And so I think it's time to shake this thing up a little bit. Listen, the college football playoff committee isn't perfect, but at least you have former coaches on that committee. And think about all the coaches that are sitting there doing nothing right now in college basketball. Boeheim's available. Tony Bennett's available. Coach K's available. Jay Wright's available. Now, listen, I know all of them wouldn't do it. I know all of them can't do it, whatever. But I just sit there and say, like, can we do a little bit better with this committee? Can we have a little bit less bias? By the way, I think we should get a couple bracketologists on there. I said it on Sunday's show. These bracketology guys are crazy with their knowledge, and I guarantee you, you pull up one of these good bracketology guys that loves this stuff, that eats, sleeps, and breathes it, I promise you, they have a better understanding of who should be in and who shouldn't. And so it's a crazy story. There's no explanation. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I think definitively something sketchy happened, but I think there's enough smoke that there could be fire. And I think it's something that, I don't think it's going away. I don't think it's going away. By the way, you know how I know it's not going away? Because West Virginia was the first team left out, and their governor is apparently suing the NCAA over this omission, okay? Just so you know, Producer Matt, I don't have a ton on this topic, but this is an insane story. First of all, peak college sports, right? Just none of it makes sense. Governor suing the NCAA, governor mad. Governor, by the way, at his speech on Monday afternoon talking about quad one wins. Who had the governor of West Virginia talking quad one wins on their Monday morning bingo card the day after the NCAA tournament selection show, okay? Probably not many, okay? But West Virginia's governor is suing the NCAA and is asking for a lawsuit explaining how West Virginia got left out. Now, again, I will sort of defend the committee here. I don't think there is super tangible evidence that West Virginia was actively screwed. But as I just said a minute ago, if you want to read the tea leaves, I think there's enough to at least call things into question, right? Again, Bubba Cunningham, a $100,000 bonus for UNC making the NCAA tournament. Oh, by the way, Bubba Cunningham, the chair of the selection committee. So, again, I don't know what you're going to find, but I think it's at least worth asking questions. By the way, I'll say this, super side tangent, probably get myself in trouble. I love this part of our society in 2025. We're questioning everything. How is the government spending our money? How is this happening? How is that happening? What about this? What about that? And it's like, now we're like, oh, wait. So the selection committee chair is also the AD of the school that got in last year. We should be at least asking some questions. And so I love this. I will say, I don't know how much of a leg there is to stand on. The other thing too, and I didn't talk about this with the Bubba Cunningham thing, what I think makes things more complicated, and I was talking to actually an assistant coach about this over the course of the last couple of days, is I think what makes things more every year they add new metrics to the decision-making process, right? So they've used KenPom for years. Now they use Bart Torvik. They use this website. They use that website. At some point, you just have too many freaking analytics, okay? And at some point, you got to look at West Virginia and say, whatever they were, 19-13, 10-10 in the Big 12, 6 quad one wins. UNC has 1. Yeah, that's a better resume. Now, listen, I'll say this, and this can get me in trouble if we clip this off and this makes its way to West Virginia. I may never be welcome back on the country roads, although I've been once and it was beautiful, but that's another conversation, okay? Listen, I don't think West Virginia should have been left out over North Carolina. I do think there are a couple more holes on the resume than everybody is willing to acknowledge. They do have those 3 Q2 losses. They took some really bad losses late. They lost to Colorado, by the way, in the opening round of the Big 12 tournament. I know that Kansas State had a couple weeks there where they played really well, but they lost to Kansas State earlier in the season. You go on and on down the list. They lost earlier in the year as well to Arizona State, who is obviously not very good. And so I just bring it up to very simply say, I don't want to get myself in too much trouble in West Virginia. I thought there were holes in the resume, but I will also side with the governor here, is if you're just looking at those two teams on a piece of paper and there's no bias of North Carolina basketball, West Virginia has a better resume than North Carolina. 10-10 in a much tougher league, more quad 1 wins. Now, they did have 3 quad 2 losses, but Carolina had a quad 3 loss of their own. And so I think West Virginia's governor has a point. By the way, I'd say this. I think there are 2 or 3 teams that you could poke holes in their resume with West Virginia getting in over them, or West Virginia not getting in over them. Texas, I get it. Toughest league in the history of college basketball. 15 losses. Listen, I said it on Sunday's show, and I said it throughout the week. I know that overall losses is not a metric that the committee uses, but I do think there's a breaking point where it's like, okay, I know it was the toughest league ever, but Texas went 6-12, had no good out-of-conference wins, and lost 15 games total this season. West Virginia should have been in over Texas. I believe West Virginia should have been in over Xavier. I love Sean Miller. Sean Miller's a great guy. 1 quad 1 win all season. I'm sorry. Now, Xavier got a little bit of a benefit of the doubt because Zach Fremantle, one of their star players, came back late in the season. He was injured. He gets healthy. They're playing better with him. So I get that. But I really think there were 2 or 3 teams that you could make a strong argument for West Virginia over them, not just North Carolina. I said it on Sunday's show. I would have put West Virginia in. I would have put, who were the other ones that got left? I would put Indiana in. I think Indiana might have even had a stronger argument than West Virginia. No Q2, Q3, or Q4 losses. All their losses were in quad 1. Win at Michigan State. Win over whoever. So I just bring it up because, listen, I think West Virginia's governor should look into this. I think he should fight it. I don't know how much can actually be done, but I just bring it up because this is crazy. This story, I promise you people, is not going anywhere. Tell you what, though, I'm going to go somewhere. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. When we do, we will talk about 5 teams that I believe, we'll get back to the bracket because there is a bracket to actually break down. 5 teams that I believe are capable of, a little bit underseeded, that I believe are capable of making a run in the NCAA tournament. We'll take a quick break. We'll do that next. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, many of you ask me all the time, Torres, what can I do to help support the show? You give me hours and hours and hours of content every single week. What can I do to help you? Well, I'll tell you what. Do me a quick favor. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merchandise store for all of your team-specific shirts, hats, and more. All available at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. A lot of you wondering, Torres, what can I get in that merch store? Well, first of all, we got our brand new Hope and Pope Kentucky basketball t-shirts. That's right. Mark Pope has arrived. He is here to save the day. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirts there. Also, Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is here. You can get your tees there. Basketball School Alabama shirts. More Hurley 2024 UConn shirts for your tailgates at Rentschler Field, your games at the XL Center or Gamble. And oh, by the way, your Mike effing Woodson gear for Indiana. If you love football, we got you covered too. We got more Dion shirts and hats than we even know what to do with. The freeze warning has hit the plains. Auburn fans, grab your freeze warning tees now. And of course, our new era, new rules shirt applies to Nebraska football and its incredible fan base. We have more coming for the fall, plenty in stock right now. So make sure to check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And you can always hit me up with any questions. Aaron Torres Podcast Questions @gmail.com. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So let's keep the conversation going. We have done enough conspiracy theory for one day. And instead, what we are going to do instead is actually, we're going to do this crazy thing called talk about the bracket. Before we do get to the bracket, though, do want to mention this. I want to thank, as always, our friends, our partners, our buddies. I want to thank BetUS and BetUS TV, okay? So BetUS TV, listen, great partner of the Aaron Torres pod. Several years now, they sent us to Phoenix for the Final Four last year. Here's the great news. We are going to be in San Antonio this year covering the Final Four on behalf of BetUS TV, okay? So BetUS TV, listen, it's March. It's the springtime. All these sports are overlapping. College hoops, yes, but also Major League Baseball spring training, NHL, NBA, European soccer, I think is maybe going on. BetUS TV has you covered. Live analysis, sharp, smart analysis. The college basketball page, by the way, my buddy Corby crushes it on there. Jeff Nadeau crushes it on there. So BetUS TV is an awesome resource all March long. We appreciate their support. They're sending us to San Antonio for the Final Four. We very much appreciate BetUS and BetUS Sportsbook. So with that said, let's go ahead and switch gears. And let's go ahead and get back to the bracket. Okay. So the bracket is out. You've probably heard. And, this is that time of year where now, listen, it's time. The bracket is out. We'll do our official picks tomorrow, but it is time to just break some stuff down, right? Let's talk some ball. Let's talk some basketball. Okay. And what I want to do a very generic segment, but one that I know you guys and girls are going to care about deeply. Who are the surprise teams that you need to know that can make a tourney run, okay? So it's that time of year, right? You're trying to gather as much information, matchups, this, that, the other thing. And so what I want to do now, I'm going to give you 5 teams that I believe are not necessarily underseeded, but could outplay their expectations, okay? So what this is not going to be, this is not going to be, Torres is picking a 15 seed to upset a 2 seed, okay? This is going to be me picking teams seeded 6 or lower that I think could make the second weekend. So in other words, if you're a 6 seed, you're not supposed to make it to the second weekend. You're going to play a higher seeded team. You're supposed to lose. I have 5 teams that I believe can make at least the second weekend, maybe beyond. All of them seeded 6th or worse. The first one, certainly a controversial team on Selection Sunday. We've talked about them a lot. I'll tell you this. I think the Louisville Cardinals, I don't think it's a crazy idea for them to be playing into the second weekend, okay? By the way, Louisville fans, if you're going to Rupp Arena and you're Louisville Red, guess what? We got a special deal for you. I mentioned at the top of the show, but we're working with SeatGeek all March long. Cool deal. $20 off your first purchase when you use the code Torres at checkout. So you're going to root on the cards at Rupp Arena. Use code Torres at checkout for $20 off. But Louisville, let's talk about them. Bottom line, first of all, I think Creighton's a good matchup for them. Listen, I think Creighton has overachieved this year. I think Creighton's kind of limited in who they are and what they do. Ryan Kalkbrenner's an All-American. Stephen Ashworth is awesome. But the guy who was supposed to be their starting point guard got hurt and has been out for most of the year. And, Creighton, I think, listen, I'll be real. I think they took advantage of a not very good Big East. St. John's is amazing. You get past St. John's, Marquette has issues. UConn has issues. Xavier has issues. And everybody else really wasn't that good. Doesn't mean the Big East hasn't been good in years past. Doesn't mean the Big East is good now. And so you look at a Louisville team that is 21-2 in their last 23 games, playing insane basketball. And I just like the matchup against Creighton. And then I'll tell you what, let's get to the second round with Auburn. I'm not necessarily picking Auburn to lose this game. Sorry, producer Matt. But listen, first of all, I'm not picking Auburn necessarily to lose this game. We'll make our official bracket picks. But let's be real. Auburn has lost 3 of its last 4. Ironically, they've lost 3 of its last 4 since the old belt-to-ass celebration at Rupp Arena. So now they're coming back. They're not playing well. Now, listen, I think you could argue with Auburn that, listen, they play Texas A&M. A&M desperately needs a win. They lose at the buzzer to Alabama. Tennessee's really good. So, you can absolutely make the argument that Auburn is going to make a run. But do I think it's impossible that Louisville pulls off the upset? No, I don't think it's impossible. I think Louisville matches up pretty well with them for an 8 seed. By the way, Louisville fans will tell you, and they're right, they shouldn't be an 8 seed, but that's another conversation for another day. So Louisville is misseeded, probably should have been closer to a 6. The game is an hour from their campus. By the way, I got crushed in the comments for saying it was 45 minutes from Louisville. Apparently, I must have been driving pretty fast today. I got there in 45. But I just bring it up because they're going to have a home court advantage, and then you know how tournaments work. Lower seeded or higher seeded team falls down. Home, the crowd is against them. Play a little bit tight. I think there's a very not likely. Likely is not the right word. I think there's a feasible scenario that Louisville is playing in the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Louisville is the first team that I believe that could surprise some people in the opening round of the NCAA tournament and maybe even make it to a second weekend seeded 6 or below. Number 2, this one's tough because New Mexico has never made the second weekend, has never made a Sweet 16 in program history. But I kind of like this matchup with Marquette, okay? So first off, opening round against Marquette, what you need to know about New Mexico, starting point guard Donovan Dent. Donovan Dent could play anywhere in college basketball, okay? He is a guy who averaged 20 points and 6 assists per game this year, basically relatively similar numbers to what he put up last year. Could enter the portal, decided to return. By the way, remember last year, New Mexico had JT Toppin, who was the Big 12 Player of the Year this year at Texas Tech. So Richard Pitino has done a good job of evaluating under-recruited guys. And so I bring it up because, by the way, apparently producer Matt has New Mexico in the Sweet 16. Well, producer Matt, maybe we'll both look smart, maybe we won't, okay? But New Mexico, Donovan Dent, I don't want to say he's better than Cam Jones because Cam Jones might be a first-team All-American depending on what list you look at. But Donovan Dent could play anywhere. Most of their other guys began at the high major level. CJ Noland, a guard, began his career at Oklahoma. Philippe Probacherin, I always trip up on his name, began his career at Arizona. Also worth noting, by the way, their number one big guy, Nelly Jr. Joseph, I think he's better than anybody that Marquette has in the front court. He began his career at Iona with Rick Pitino. So if you can play for Rick Pitino, you can play anywhere. I just really like this team. I really like the matchup with Marquette. Listen, a second-round matchup with Michigan State will not be easy. There's a reason that New Mexico is the 10 seed. But Michigan State isn't some unbeatable juggernaut. They don't score very much. They rebound well. They defend. But I believe New Mexico is going to have the best player on the court in Donovan Dent. They might have the best big guy in Nelly Jr. Joseph. And again, Donovan Dent, in my opinion, I think he could be one of these breakout stars of the NCAA tournament. New Mexico, it would not surprise me if they were in the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Let's keep it going. Number 3 on the list of teams that I think could surprise some people in this NCAA tournament, the BYU Cougars. Yeah, we've talked a lot about BYU, but it's with good reason. By the way, I just mentioned it for Louisville. I will mention it again. BYU fans, I know a lot of you are going to Denver. I know Kevin Young got right on social media and said, we need you in Denver. And if you're going, again, a reminder, use promo code Torres on SeatGeek, get 20% off your purchase. So you want to go. I saw tickets were about $75 right now. Use promo code Torres. You can get $20 off your first purchase. Thank me later. Cheer loud. Make me look good because I think BYU could make a little bit of a run here. So first of all, I see a lot of people saying that VCU maybe is the better team or can at least pull off the upset. I'm not saying it can't happen. But this is one, I think the schedule kind of screws over VCU, to be perfectly honest. And I think so much of the tournament, it's about matchups, but it's about all the other variables, okay? So you think about BYU versus VCU. BYU plays Friday night against Houston. They lose. That sucks, but Houston's a really good team, okay? And so you lose to Houston. You get on a plane. You're home late Friday, early Saturday. You're home all day Saturday, all day Sunday. You're chilling. VCU played the 2 biggest games maybe of its season on Saturday and Sunday, okay? They win the A-10 championship probably about 2 o'clock Eastern time. They drive back. They probably don't get back to campus until right around that bracket comes out. Now, after playing 3 straight high-leverage games on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they got to get on a plane and fly west to Denver on Tuesday. That's a quick turnaround. I think it's also worth noting they're going to be playing at altitude. BYU plays at altitude. Believe me. When I worked out at the Holiday Inn Express gym in Provo, I was sucking wind, okay? That altitude is real. VCU is not used to it. BYU is. I like the matchup there. And then with Wisconsin, I think it's the same thing. Like, they're kind of similar teams, shoot a lot of threes, good guard play. I think BYU is kind of a better team. Now, Wisconsin is really good, played for a Big Ten championship. They get hot, can hit a lot of threes. But I could see the scenario where BYU beats both of those teams, goes to the first Sweet 16 since the Jimmer Fredette era. I just like how the matchups, match up. The other thing, too, really quick, I'll be quick because I want to keep going. Remember, they got a bunch of guys that played in the tournament last year. 4 guys that were on that roster, headlined by Richie Saunders, all Big 12 first team. This is not a team that, because it's a new coaching staff, they got a bunch of guys who haven't been there before. On top of them, Mawit Mag has been in NCAA tournaments. They got 5-6 guys in their rotation that have played in an NCAA tournament. I like them to maybe potentially make a deep run. Producer Matt, the kiss of death, he likes BYU as well. I'm not even going to tell you how far he has BYU going because I don't want to get in trouble if something weird happens, okay? Number 4 in terms of teams that I believe can make a run. Again, these are teams seeded 6 or below, so not supposed to make it out of the first weekend. Let's do it, baby. Let's do, is Drake up next, Producer Matt? I forget. Okay, Drake is next. Okay, so listen, Drake is a trendy pick. We all know the story. Ben McCollum's their head coach, D2 head coach, D2 legend, really? I keep saying this. Can somebody be a legend when they're like 42 years old, but coached at D2 for about 15 years, won 4 national championships, goes to Drake, immediately wins 30 games, and has things rolling. By the way, I think it's kind of interesting. Saw Ben McCollum went out with my buddy Dan Dockich on Monday. I don't know. I don't think you go on with the biggest Indiana voice personality if you're not interested in that Indiana job. Another conversation, whatever. Bring it up because, listen, the story's great, but I actually just like the matchups that they have. Well, I like one at least. Missouri, I think, is a good matchup for them. We talked about it on Sunday's show. What does Missouri want to do? They want to play fast. They want to force a lot of turnovers, and they want you to turn the ball over and make you uncomfortable. Well, Drake plays at that super deliberate pace. Drake does not turn the ball over. They're one of the best teams in the country in turnover margin in terms of they commit very few turnovers. They force a lot of turnovers. I think they're going to dictate that game. Again, we'll make our official picks Tuesday, but I really like how that matchup works well for Drake. I think they could beat Missouri. Now, I will say, Texas Tech ain't going to be easy. Texas Tech is a really good team. Listen, you're not rooting for injuries, but Texas Tech is a little bit banged up right now. That's something to monitor. By the way, that is part of the reason we don't make our picks until Tuesday night into Wednesday. We're monitoring injuries. Texas Tech has a couple. So I don't know that I feel great about Drake winning a second game, but I think they're in very good position to win at least one. And once you win that first one, you never know what's going to happen. Last team, 5 teams that I believe could surprise some people. Let's go to beautiful Providence, Rhode Island. Not going to go with Arkansas. Not going to go with Kansas to upset St. John's. I'm going to go with those McNeese Cowboys, baby. That's right. Will Wade, the American gangster, just had him on the pod a few weeks ago. Now, listen, their matchup with Clemson is not easy, okay? But Clemson is a team. Listen, Clemson doesn't overwhelm you with anything. The thing about McNeese, and Will Wade might have even said it on this show, McNeese, they're not very big. And Will Wade, I thought, had an interesting explanation. He's like, I could recruit a 7-footer, but we would never play him in our league because nobody has that kind of size. So they're a little bit smaller. I thought last year they got overwhelmed by Gonzaga's size. And I will readily admit that Clemson is pretty big in the front court. Clemson doesn't have big guys that take over games, though. They're more kind of role players. But, they're not like, it's not like playing Janai Broom or, whoever. Even like an Amari Williams at Kentucky. That's not who you're playing. You're not playing Jonas Adu. Like, I'm just sorry you're not. And so, can McNeese get hot? Again, they're a team. They have high major dudes. Brandon Murray played in the Big East in the SEC. LSU to Georgetown. Georgetown to Ole Miss. Now he's at McNeese. One of their starting forwards began his career at Arizona State. Last year, one of their other forwards played at Syracuse. They have dudes that have played at the high major level. I don't think it's a terrible matchup with Clemson. And then if they survive, I'll tell you this. The more I look into Purdue High Point, I think High Point could potentially pull the upset. So it wouldn't totally shock me if we had a 12 versus 13 there, even if they play Purdue. Purdue, this is the 1 year. They don't have that 7'4" guy in the paint. Their starting center, Daniel Jacobson, got hurt in the preseason. And so Trey Kaufman-Wren is a really good player, but he's like a 6'9" dude. He's, they've seen a Trey Kaufman-Wren before. I don't know if they've ever seen anybody 7'2", 7'3". So McNeese is the 5th team that I believe could pull off some shockers. Again, I'm not saying it will happen, but I'm saying it could. And again, we will do our full NCAA bracket breakdown on Tuesday night at some point. Don't know exactly when we'll go live, But those are 5 teams that I think could be in really good position to surprise some people. For those of you who missed the start of the segment, it is Louisville, the 8 seed in the South, New Mexico, the 10 seed in the South. We also have BYU, the 6 seed in the East, I believe. And then also we have Drake, an 11 seed. I don't even remember what region, whatever. Midwest maybe. And then we will wrap with McNeese, who is playing in Providence against Clemson. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a final break, maybe get to some of your questions, but I'll tell you what we're going to do? Get ready, people, because for the first time this season, we're going to do a transfer portal segment, okay? If you have listened to this show, a lot of you probably found this show during portal season last year. We, I think, talked probably more college basketball portal than I would guess any outlet anywhere. Well, the portal is not technically open yet, but as coaches get fired, guys are entering. As seasons end, guys are entering. And I got a few names that you already need to know, even though the portal isn't open. Quick break. Be right back. What's up, everybody? It's AT, and listen, long day of podcasting. Sometimes don't always look the best. So look at this. It's a little bit not great, okay? Well, here is the great news. The great people at Filebox said, Torres, you're a professional. You just got 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. You need to look better. And so they sent me a couple awesome things. I want to pull them out for you right now. This is all from the winter collection, by the way. Spring collection is coming out. We got the vest, very, very, very nice. The sweater, very professional for when I go to professional events. We got these nice blue jeans. I think the question now everybody's asking is, Torres, how do you actually look when you put that stuff on? Let's find out. Well, what do you think? Sweater fits perfectly. Great for all occasions. When I go to games, when I go out to a dinner, warm weather, cool weather, it's perfect. Speaking of perfect, these jeans are phenomenal. Great for games, great for social events. Oh, by the way, a little bit stretchy if those New Year's resolutions aren't going on as planned. Really quickly, we got to try out. Let's try out the vest. It fits perfectly. Not a surprise. So here's the deal. If you want to look as good as Torres, this is what I need you to do. I need you to go to Filebox.com. That's F-I-O-B-O-C. Filebox.com. And here's the best part. For listeners to the Aaron Torres pod, you get 20% off with code Torres20 at checkout. We also put a referral link in all of our YouTube videos. Thank you to Filebox. By the way, make sure you're following them on social media at F-I-O-B-O-C. Thank you to Filebox. You want to look as good as Torres, check them out. Again, promo code Torres20 for 20% off. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So that's what I want to go ahead and do here. I want to get to the transfer portal in a minute. But you know what else I want to do? I want to thank our friends. I want to thank our partners. I want to thank Cauley Puffs and CauleyPuffs.com. Okay, so it's that time of year, March Madness. You're on the couch. You're sitting there watching a ton of basketball. You watched basketball all last week. You're watching basketball all this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, plus a couple games on Tuesday and Wednesday. You need a snack that is both healthy but delicious. You need Cauley Puffs, my friend. Okay, so I've told you about Cauley Puffs. Great story, great company. Awesome people. Joey, the founder, lives not far from me. He's a huge sports fan. And basically, he was sitting on the couch one day and said, I need a healthy snack for my kids. I need a healthy snack for me, something that is, yes, healthy, but also delicious. And he came up with Cauley Puffs, people. Okay, baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But the best part is they taste delicious. For more information, you go to CauleyPuffs.com. That's CauleyPuffs.com, CauleyPuffs.com. You can also find them on Amazon, okay? So you're on Amazon, got some stuff in the cart, looking for a snack to throw in there. I don't want to know what's in your cart, you little weirdo, but throw some Cauley Puffs in. Thank Torres later, and you will thank me. Speaking of thanks, we appreciate Cauley Puffs' support. With that said, let's go ahead and wrap with the first of what I suspect will be one of roughly 1,000 transfer portal segments here on the Aaron Torres Pod and Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel over the next 2 months. Yes, I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, but not by much, because here's the bottom line. I said it before the break. I don't know that there's any show anywhere that talks more college hoops transfer portal than we do, but the bottom line is that you guys and girls love it, and the bottom line is it's about that time to start talking about it. Now, it's kind of interesting from a calendar perspective, because usually in years past, this was the day that the transfer portal opened. So the transfer portal opened historically the day after the bracket was announced. Coaches started complaining, hey, I'm spending all my time that I should be planning for the NCAA tournament. I'm instead focusing on the transfer portal. And so I just bring it up because they actually changed the portal window this year. It starts a little bit later. My lighting here is all screwed up. Let me hold on 1 second here. Give me 1 second, people. Okay. Whatever. All right. Doesn't look much better, but you know what? That doesn't look good at all. All right, here we go. Perfect. Look at that. Lighting is amazing. All right. So like I said, portal usually opened at this time on the calendar, the day after the bracket came out. Coaches complained. So it technically doesn't open for another week, but it is not stopping players from entering. It is not stopping players from considering it. And especially, by the way, it's worth noting, like when coaches get fired, players are allowed to enter the transfer portal and schools are allowed to contact them. So the portal isn't technically open yet, but there are already some big names. Let's go ahead and dive into a few. First one you need to know, this guy entered just a few minutes, probably about an hour or so before we went live. Didon Thomas Jr. from UNLV. Listen, I'm here to tell you this. So Didon Thomas Jr., interesting story. UNLV just fired its coach, Kevin Kruger, the son of Lon Kruger, former player. This kid was his biggest recruit that he ever had there and the biggest star that has come through that program in a long time, okay? Very interesting story. He was a 5-star recruit out of Vegas, class of 2025, I believe, or it would have been 2024, I guess, ends up reclassifying and coming to UNLV a year early. Again, I'm telling you, this was a monster recruiting win for UNLV. Didon Thomas Sr., his dad actually played at UNLV under Jerry Tarkanian, one of Tarkanian's final teams. This is his son, gets to UNLV, and for an otherwise forgettable program, he was one of the few bright spots. 2 seasons ago, as a true freshman, one of the youngest players in college basketball, remember, he reclassified, 13 points a game, 5 assists a game as a freshman. This past year, as a sophomore, 15 points, 5 assists per game as well. Lefty guard, gets to the rim, attacking, very good athlete. And what I think about him, first of all, he's a guy that could play anywhere. It's worth noting. He chose UNLV over UCLA, Gonzaga, Florida, Arizona, among others. So when you're getting recruited out of high school by Arizona, Gonzaga, Florida, whoever else I said, doesn't really matter. You can play anywhere. UCLA was the other school. Chose UNLV, but I think as he enters the portal, he will be as coveted as any player that we have this entire spring. He's a proven college player, can play anywhere. And I think the interesting thing about him, he's a little bit undersized. So, I don't think he's a great NBA prospect. And so he's a guy that, 2 or 3, 5 years ago, pre-NIL, he might have just gone pro and just been like, screw it, I got to make some money. But I think he's a guy that you could potentially have for 2 years. I think he could go to the SEC or the Big 10 or the Big 12 next year, average 17 a game and still come back as a senior because he's just at 6'1". He's not a great NBA draft prospect, but he can play anywhere. Listen, I would assume some of those relationships from the original recruitment would still stand. Florida's obviously going to need players after this year. Elijah Martin and Walter Clayton are both in their final year of eligibility. I think Will Richard might be as well, but Florida's going to need some guards. After that, Gonzaga's going to need a whole new roster. I mean, I don't think people understand. I think Gonzaga's top 6 scorers are out of eligibility after this year. So I'm not saying that those are going to be the landing spots. What I am saying is he has relationships. Those staffs haven't changed. Arizona, I'm not saying they wouldn't be in. I'm just saying I think Jaden Bradley is back next year, so maybe it doesn't make a ton of sense for him to go there. But yeah, Didon Thomas Jr. is the first name to know. Second name to know, another player who just was part of a program where the coach was fired. Fran McCaffrey out at Iowa. His leading scorer, Owen Freeman, entered the portal late last week. Okay, so this kid's been in for a few days. 7-foot center, 6'10", 17 points, 7 rebounds, 1.5 blocks per game. Really good player. Listen, he's not a great 3-point shooter. Iowa, to their credit, in the past has actually developed a lot of bigs that can shoot the 3 ball. He is probably not one of them, or at least he hasn't proven that so far in his career. But when you, as a player in the Big Ten, can average the averages that he did, even on a not very good team, I think it speaks to the fact that you can play pretty much anywhere. Only thing with him, he is coming off an injury, missed the final about 15 or so games of the season. But when he played, he was awesome. 21-8 against Minnesota, 23-6 against USC, 22-5 in a couple out of conference games, 21-11 against Washington State earlier in the season. 6'10", pretty athletic, not a great 3-point shooter. Like I said, a lot of those Iowa guys historically have been able to shoot threes, even the big guys. Listen, it's just internet speculation, but I think there's been a little bit of Michigan buzz. I think that one to me does make sense. They're going to lose Vlad Golden after the season, probably going to lose Danny Wolf, who could go pro. So they played with those 2 7-footers this year. They're going to need a replacement. Owen Freeman, really good player. And I think he has a chance to, he's kind of one of those like Deion Thomas. He's going to be able to go pretty much wherever he wants. Staying with the Iowa theme, a couple other guys, but the other one's Brock Harding. Listen, I'm not going to oversell this kid. If this was mid-April and the portal was humming, I don't know how much we'd be spending time on him, but is a starter in the Big Ten. 8.5 points per game, 5 assists per game is the important part. Listen, he's a little bit undersized, but again, you start in the Big Ten, you could play pretty much anywhere in college basketball, okay? So gets to the rim, kind of, listen, to his credit, smaller guy, but gets to all his spots, makes plays, and just a guy that has experience. And so I guess my thing with him would be, is this a scenario where you get, where you end up somewhere else? Could you come back? He's from Illinois. Does he stay in the Big Ten footprint? And then I guess my other question would be, is he kind of a lead guard or is he kind of a sixth man? I think in a best case scenario, he's maybe not your starter, but he's kind of the guy that off your bench that plays 28 minutes anyway. In some ways, and I know he's not the same player, he kind of reminds me like Hassan Diarra at UConn, where the best version of UConn was when Hassan Diarra was their sixth man, not their starting point guard playing 32 minutes a game. So we'll see what happens. It's early. I haven't seen even any speculation on him. But again, if you can start in the Big Ten, if you can average 8-9 points, 5.5, 6 assists per game, you can play. Really good player. Let's keep it going. These two names are big. You need to know them. This is important. Obi Agbim, okay, just entered the portal on Monday. Today's Monday. From Wyoming. Interesting story, and this is a story that's going to show itself over the course of the next few weeks, okay? He is one of these kids. He was a JUCO guy. Remember, all these JUCO guys got extra year of eligibility. The NCAA had that weird rule that passed that basically, it wasn't a rule that passed. It was a judge basically said, JUCO does not count against your clock. So everyone who has ever played JUCO has another year of eligibility. It's crazy. So we thought we were done with 25, 26-year-olds in college basketball. To quote Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. Okay, so this kid was a JUCO kid, goes to Wyoming, plays 1 year there, averages just under 18 points per game, and oh, by the way, shot 44% from the three-point line. So in his first year in Division I college basketball, insane. Averaged 18 points in the Mountain West, and again, 44% from three. Thing about him, he's kind of, to me, more of a combo guard than like a true point guard. I would say he doesn't necessarily like get a ton of others involved. He did lead Wyoming in assists with 3.5, but he's not a guy that's just going to totally set up other people. But if you can get buckets, if you can shoot 44% from behind the 3-point arc, yeah, you're doing pretty good work. And yeah, he's a guy that I believe can be a difference maker at the power conference level. Listen, I will be real. First of all, I think everybody's going to be involved. I saw one of the lead Arkansas reporters, Kevin McPherson, who does a good job, say he thinks Arkansas is going to be involved. I'll be real. I don't really see how that would work. They already have 2 freshmen committed, Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas. DJ Wagner, I would think would come back, but maybe he's on the way out and Arkansas wants a veteran guard. Also seen some Kentucky speculation that this is a guy that Mark Pope would target to replace Lamont Butler next year. We know they have a Caden Lewis, low 5-star, high 4-star coming in next year. So I just bring it up because this is a name to know, interesting name. We'll see what happens. Last name to know of the early group, this kid, Trayson Eaglestaff, okay? If you miss this kid earlier in the year, remember, Alabama, if you remember, they played a game in North Dakota. It was for Grant Nelson, okay? So Grant Nelson, we talked about him in the portal a lot 2 years ago. He's from Devils Lake, North Dakota. And to honor Grant Nelson, Alabama was like, you know what? Let's go back to North Dakota and let's play a game in your home state for you. Here's the thing, though. They go there and they almost lose because Trayson Eaglestaff dropped 40 on their heads, okay? 8 for 18 from behind the three-point arc, 40 points against Bama. I remember texting our Torres on Bama kid, Drew, and he's like, why are we playing this game? We're going to freaking lose this game because this Eaglestaff kid is killing us right now. Now, maybe it says a little bit about Alabama's defense, but this kid is a baller. Like I said, 19 points per game, 36% from three. That three-point shooting is actually a little bit down from a year ago. Listen, whenever you make this comparison, like this is going to be the guy that we always compare to. I mean, it's hard. Little Dalton Connect vibes, 6'6", 6'7", puts the ball in the basket, put up 40 on Bama. And so I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he did actually plans to put his name in the draft. We'll see if that happens. I think he's probably going to get some very, very lucrative offers to stay in college basketball. I think it's early to speculate on where he could end up. And I'll say this for a lot of these kids too, is that, they may enter the portal thinking they have an idea of where they want to go. Then they get in the portal and it's like, oh my God, that school wants me. That school's offering that. I got to rethink it. I'll give you a quick side story. Cliff Omoyori, who's at Alabama right now, I can say on pretty good authority, when he entered the portal, he thought he knew where he was going, and he thought it was not going to be Alabama. Then he got in the portal. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, North Carolina wants me? And at the time, Kentucky, when Calipari was still there, wants me? And Alabama wants me? And all of a sudden, he didn't end up where he thought he was probably going to go when he entered the portal. And so I only bring it up because this Eaglestaff kid, if he ends up staying in college hoops, he's going to have interest from everybody. Listen, I'm not accusing anyone of tampering. I think Alabama would be crazy not to. Alabama should have pulled him aside on the way back to the locker room that night. Again, not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just saying Alabama saw it up close and in person. So again, I want to be clear. I love that staff over there. I'm not accusing Alabama of tampering. I'm just saying when you put 40 on Bama, yeah, you're pretty freaking good. Oh, should mention with the Eaglestaff, by the way, my buddy Jacob Polacek, beast of a recruiting writer, works for KSR. Already interviewed him, said he would be interested in Kentucky if Kentucky reached out. He's another kid that would fit perfectly with Kentucky. We'll see. Kentucky obviously is going to have some holes to fill after this season. I think he's getting a lot of money to play college basketball next year, and I think just about every school in America is going to reach out. By the way, a little bit of an interesting background, too. Has a Native American background, which I just think is really cool. Obviously, we know how big reservation basketball is in the Northwest area part of the country, Montana, Idaho, Arizona, I think, maybe Oklahoma. So a little bit of Native American in him. He talks about his heritage a lot. I just think it's a cool story. A story that, by the way, you'll be hearing plenty about as he goes through college basketball next year. Really quickly, I see nobody yelling at people in the chat. Producer Matt, do we have any questions, comments in the chat that are worth getting to before we get out of here? Nice little crowd here on a Monday night. Tuesday night, we will do my official bracket picks. Okay, so Mr. Kite, we're back to North Carolina. Was Bub Cunningham the AD that at North Carolina during the academic athletic scandal involved athletic fraud and dishonesty? I'll be real, I don't know. That was a wild story, though. I tend to think he wasn't. I'm trying to remember. Give me 1 second. I'm going to look this up while we're on air because I actually want to see here. Give me a second, people. Let's make sure we wade through. Oh, look at this. Well, he was named athletic director November 2011. So I believe that probably I think he basically got the job right around the time of that academic scandal. My guess would be they probably forced out the previous AD because of the academic scandal, and he got that job. So I don't believe he was the AD during that scandal. But listen, I know I see some Carolina fans in the chat saying it's ridiculous to even think about it. I'm just sitting here saying I think it's fair to ask questions, right? Like I mentioned it. We live in a world where people are asking tough questions. So we'll see with Carolina. Producer Matt, anything else? We can also get out of here early. Nobody wants some Cauley Puffs now. We're going to get you some, nobody, okay? We're going to get you some. But if you have not gotten yours yet, again, you can go to CauleyPuffs.com, CauleyPuffs.com, CauleyPuffs.com. Also, Amazon.com/CauleyPuffs. We still owe a listener of the show some for hitting 50,000 subscribers a few weeks ago, so maybe we'll do it then. All right, I'll tell you what. What do we got? Aaron has some insight with players than all podcasts. Has more insight with players than all other podcasts. Josh, thank you, man. Listen, I'm not perfect, right? But how do I say this? I don't even want to say it. I don't want to jinx it. I think the portal is much. I don't even want to say it. I don't want to jinx it. We love talking portal, and this is where you need to come for the portal, okay? That's all I'll say. If you love portal talk, and you're going to, because only one team can win the national championship. There's only going to be 16 teams still playing basketball at the end of this weekend. You're going to want portal talk. You're going to want to come to the Aaron Torres pod. You know what else you're going to want to do? A couple quick things. One, you're going to make sure you join the Aaron Torres pod Survivor pool. The link is pinned atop the chat, okay? And we've talked about this a lot, okay? So Survivor pool, we've all played them. You know how Survivor pools work. You pick one team every single day of the NCAA tournament, and guess what? After you pick that one team, you can't use them again. So you pick one team, you survive, you advance to the next round, you can't use them again. So it's strategic, it's smart. Remember, if you pick the wrong team, you lose, but even if you win, you can't use that team a second time. It's fun. You're competing against me. You'll compete against producer Matt. So make sure to sign up. $20 to enter, minimum $500 cash prize. And oh, by the way, the more people that we get, the bigger that prize pool gets. So make sure to sign up. The Aaron Torres Pod Bracket Challenge Survivor Pool link is in the show description. Also, if you're going to games, SeatGeek, ticketing partner, Aaron Torres Pod for March Madness. It's very simple. Listen, I could give you the whole song and dance. If you're going to a game, if you're going to a concert, if you're going to a rodeo, I don't know, wherever you got to buy tickets. And by the way, it doesn't just have to be the NCAA tournament. I want to make that abundantly clear. It could be a concert, it could be a hockey game. I'll be real. I think I've told this story, but my mom has a retirement home in Vegas. Bought some Golden Knights tickets with the SeatGeek promo for Torres earlier today. So, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you 20% off your first purchase, okay? SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. It's simple. You're going to the NCAA tournament. You want to go to hockey. I don't think our audience is a big NBA group, but if you even want to go to an NBA game, $20 off, SeatGeek.com or the app. Promo code Torres gets you 20% off. All right, it's time for me to go. Appreciate everybody's support. Make sure you're subscribed. Rate, review the pod. And guess what, baby? We will be back here soon. Shout out to Tourney. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Redick, you F-head. Unblock me, bro. I'll be back Tuesday night. We'll do the bracket. I don't know when, but we'll give you my official bracket picks Tuesday night. Aaron Torres pod. Appreciate you.